Welcome to our video on dividing decimals by whole numbers. So basically we're taking the traditional division that you did in elementary school, and now we're going to mix in some decimals to it. Get your title, get your essential question written down, and then get ready to go. All right, first part. The first number in a problem, 354.67 divided by 13, it's the one that's being divided. It's the whole amount. It's going to go on the inside of our division sign. The second number is the one that's doing the dividing. So in this case, we're chopping it up into 13 pieces. It's the one that's doing the work, so it's going to go on the outside. So when we set up the problem, first number inside, second number on the outside. So the key is making sure you set up that problem correctly. That first number in the problem is what's going to go on the inside of our division problem. Otherwise, we're doing a completely different problem and we're going to get a completely wrong answer for us. Okay? So let's see this in action. So a couple notes that we want to make sure we have in. When dividing a decimal by a whole number, divide just like you would with a whole number. Okay? So it's not, that decimal really doesn't change how we're doing the problem. You're still kind of following the same steps. You're just going to slide the decimal point into the dividend, that's our answer, by just going straight up. So 7.5 divided by 3. Here's what that looks like. Remember that first number goes on the inside. The second number goes on the outside. And our rule is the decimal point just slides straight into our answer. After that, we just go ahead and divide like we normally would. Ask yourself, how many times does 3 go into 7? Well, it goes in 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. Subtract, I get 1, and I bring down my 5. 3 goes into 15 5 times, and 5 times 3 is 15. Subtract, we're left with 0. There's no more digits to bring down, so we are done. 7.5 divided by 3 is just 2.5. So we followed the same steps we normally would have. The only thing that changed is we just happen to have a decimal in there. Now, not every problem is going to work out quite that nicely. So here's the next part we want jotted down in our notes. Remainders are dead. We're no longer going to do a remainder. Remainders are kind of a simplified answer. We want to be as precise as we possibly can, so we're not going to stop when we have something left over. We're actually going to keep dividing. Okay? So in real-world situations where the division does not result in a remainder of 0, you're not left over with 0 at the end after bringing everything down, we don't stop dividing. Okay, so let's see this in action. 3.49 divided by 4. First number goes on the inside, second number on the outside. Decimal slides straight up into our answer, and now we just start to divide. How many times does 4 go into 3? Well, it goes in 0 times. So when it can't go into the first digit, it goes into the first 2 digits. So think of it as 34. Don't worry about that decimal right now. We're just looking at the digits 34. 4 goes into 34 8 times, which is 32. 8 times 4 is 32. Subtract, we get a 2, and we bring down our next digit of a 9, just like regular old division. Then we do 4 goes into 29 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. Subtract, and we have a 1. So here's where we normally would have just gone ahead and stopped. We've brought all our digits down. We still have something left over, so we would say, oh, remainder 1. Well, we can't do that anymore because that's not a precise answer. So what we do is we add some zeros. As long as you're adding zeros after the decimal, at the end of a number, you're not really changing the number. Those extra zeros really don't change the amount that we're dividing, but it does give us some extra digits to allow us to keep dividing. So now I can add that 0 and bring it down. Notice I only added the 0 in here where I'm dividing. It didn't magically go into my answer. It just gives me another digit to bring down. So now I ask, how many times does 4 go into 10? It goes in 2 times. 2 times 4 is 8. Subtract. Ooh, I still have 2 left over. So in order to keep dividing, I can keep adding that 0. Again, as long as you're behind the decimal point, you can add those extra zeros and you've not changed the actual amount. You just lengthen the number there. It gives us more digits. But we can bring down that 0. 4 goes into 25 times, which is 20. And then we're left with 0. Once we finally have 0 left over, and we've brought down all the necessary digits, now we are finally done. 3.49 divided by 4 really gives us an answer of 0.8725. So we're not going to stop dividing anymore. We're going to keep going, keep adding those zeros after our decimal, and keep going until we finally get to that precise final answer. So let's do 2 more so you can kind of see it in action. If you feel like you've got this down, feel free to pause, try these on your own, and then hit play and see how you go. If you're having a little trouble, the second one's going to be a little trickier, so that might be the one I spend a little bit more time paying close attention to how I solve it. But let me do the first one, 9.48. So first number goes on the inside. Second number goes on the outside. First thing I do, so I can't forget, is slide that decimal into my answer. And then I just start to divide. 5 goes into 9 one time, which is 5. 9 minus 5 is 4. Bring down my 4. Repeat. 9 goes into 44 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40. Subtract, I get a 4, and I bring down my 8. 5 goes into 48 9 times, which is 45. Subtract, and I have a 3. So I brought down all my digits, but I still have something left over, so I can't stop. So I add an extra 0 and keep dividing. 5 goes into 36 times. 6 times 5 is 30. Now I finally got that 0 left over at the bottom. Now I can go ahead and stop. So my answer is 1.896. Last one's going to be just a little trickier. One extra thing to watch for, but it's still the same idea. 87, or 6 goes into 87. We want to see how many times. So we start with 6 goes into 8 one time. 1 times 6 is 6. Subtract and we get a 2, bring down our 7. 6 goes into 27 4 times. 4 times 6 is 24. Subtract and we get a 3. So here's where we're stuck. We have done all of our subtracting, but we still have something left over, so we want to keep going. Be careful. No, you cannot just throw in a 0, because now you made the number 870 instead of 87. So remember the rule. Before you can add an extra 0, it has to be behind the decimal point. In the number 87, the decimal is right here. So when your first number is a whole number, sometimes we're going to have to add in that decimal before we can add in those zeros and keep dividing. And remember, anytime we put the decimal in our dividend, it's going to go right up here into our quotient, our answer. But now that we've added the decimal, yes, we can go ahead and add in that 0. 6 goes into 35 times. 6 times 5 is 30. Subtract, and we finally have our 0. So 6 goes into 87, 14.5 times. So it's totally okay to add those zeros, but it's got to be behind your decimal point. Don't forget to add the decimal before the zeros if it's not already in your number.